This is a video idea that I was kind of experimenting with, or had my thoughts about it. Because, what really is an overrated band? Like, people kind of argue that if it's kind of trendy or you just hear a lot about it, then people usually associate it with overratedness. But I honestly think that it might be a bit more difficult because some bands are just like really trendy and mainstream, like Sleep Token, and I'm just like, this is the most boring shit ever, but like everyone loves it because it's like a huge band, right? So I don't really mean like that. Like, I don't think that's overrated. I just think that's trending. Like, in 5 years, no one will probably talk about that band because it's not interesting, in my opinion. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad band. I'm just saying that it's not really interesting enough to keep me engaged the entire time. So to really think about what makes a band overrated, it's about the status, it's about the longevity, it's about the legacy, and just how much a band has established over time. If they really mean something, and if they stand the test of time, and if they are still in the conversation today. So I just kind of thought about 10 bands that kind of are like that are maybe a bit too overrated for their own good. So I just kind of thought about it and I was like, yeah, I think that these 10 or so bands are, in my eyes, overrated, that still get brought up, still get played on the radio. And I just don't think they're really worth it. Like, I still listen to some of these bands. I do enjoy most of the bands, but I just don't think they, in my eyes, deserve the recognition that they got. That's just what I think, at least. So the first one, which is kind of obvious, I think. Like, I think everyone and their dog has called this band overrated, but the first one is U2. And what makes this such an overrated band is mainly because of how accessible they are. This is like a really eccentric, really like big band, or like big music, like it says on the page. Whatever the fuck that means, like arena music. Like, they're kind of like this arena rock band that plays like huge stadiums, and whenever you see them live, they're like a phenomenon to experience. Like, I'm not taking credit away from their live setting. Like, that shit is pretty huge. But it is huge, to compensate for the mediocre musicianship. Like, it's just really sterile and basic. It's nothing really interesting. If you listen to U2, you come for the hits and mainly for like the atmosphere. Like, the atmosphere in U2 is okay. It's all right, but it's not like, anything interesting, anything like gloomy or dark wave inspired, like some death consciousness or, Death Can Dance, stuff like that. It's just nowhere near the level of immersion, in my opinion. So I just think that U2, not that they're like dark, but they don't have that immersion level for me. They don't have that captivating consistency in their music, Because if you look at the tech pop rock, I would mainly call U2 a pop rock band. The most obvious example in that genre is the Beatles. And I don't necessarily think that the Beatles are great. I think they're kind of mid, to be honest, in my opinion. But, the Beatles are at least iconic. They have a lot of hit songs. They were very experimental in their prime. They, like, really innovated the template for music. So people are still using the Beatles blueprint to this day, as far as pop chord structures go. Like, the Beatles didn't invent that stuff necessarily, but they really popularized it. So if people say like the Beatles are the greatest band ever, if you say that, I think you're kind of a boring person. But I wouldn't disagree necessarily, because I'm like, yeah, the Beatles are, in concept, a phenomenal band. So I can't diss the Beatles. The Beatles did a lot for music structure. So every like studio or like every musician has to at least appreciate the Beatles, and I appreciate them as well. I just think they're kind of boring, you know. It's not really my kind of music, but I do still respect the Beatles. But U2 never really did that, you know. In like classic pop rock style, the Beatles were like always earlier than them, like 2 decades before that. You know, Zeppelin rocks harder. Van Halen is groovier. You know, I would even argue Kiss sounds tighter. You know, I think that Kiss kind of sucks, but I think even they are catchier than U2. U2 is just kind of like this slow, boring, mid-tempo band that just doesn't really go anywhere. I just think that they're the most boring band arguably ever. Well, not the most boring necessarily. I'll get to that in a bit, but I just think they're just really mediocre. They're just really mediocre musicians, and the Edge doesn't really like play guitar well. He just kind of like he puts on a tune or like a tone, and that is it. You know, that is the structure of the Edge and U2 as a whole. So I just don't think they're great musicians, and my work plays them to death, so that annoys the shit out of me. So that's kind of why I wanted to start with U2, because they're just the most obvious band to call overrated. It's the most obvious example of that. So the second band that I want to mention is LCD Sound System, which might be a bit less obvious, but I find this band overrated because nothing that they do sounds great. Like the musicianship in this band is like pretty piss poor in my opinion. The beat structure is pretty basic. The singing is not great, you know. I don't enjoy this guy's voice. So if you have like a genre that's called dance punk, you can click on that, and it takes you to Gang of Four. It takes you to Metal Box. It you know, it takes you to all this kind of music, which I would call better. Like entertainment is like an actual entertaining album to listen to. So why wouldn't you just listen to Gang of Four? Why wouldn't you just listen to Metal Box? That's a great set of songs. Sound of Silver just sounds mid. It just sounds fucking boring. So that's just one example. Then they do another genre, which is called Indie-tronica. And, you know, you have Vespertine, like one of the most emotional, gripping albums ever. You have Velocity, which is just such a fun album. I fucking love this album. It's so fucking good. Then you have, you know, a Little Ugly Mane album. That's always great. The Age of Ads, I think, it's just rich with detail, density, with emotion. I just think this is an amazing album. You know, FK Twigs has like kind of a quite delicate tone, so I quite enjoy this. Animal Collective, of course, the most like kind of the most basic one, but it's a pretty good entry point to the indie-tronica genre. But Sound of Silver it just doesn't do anything for me. I just named like 5 amazing albums, all in that same genre, while Sound of Silver's next to them, and it just sounds piss poor in my opinion. I just don't understand why people like this. You can explain to me why this is great. I just don't understand. Like everything that I just said about those albums is great, you know, in my opinion is great, and this album just doesn't possess that. So I just don't understand why you would listen to this. I just don't get it. The next band, which is probably a bit controversial, which is Rush. And I don't really think that any of these bands suck, to be honest, except for maybe U2. You know, Rush is good. They are a good band, but usually when I listen to this album, I'm just kind of like, it sounds kind of like a neo-prog version of Yes, you know? And I just love Yes, you know? I love to listen to Yes, Close to the Edge and Fragile. The Yes album, you know, that Tales of topographic shit or something. Like that really long, dense album. I'm like, fuck, that's great. I just love all those albums. You know, King Crimson, kind of the contextual king of the entire genre. That's great, you know. I think that Pink Floyd is overrated as well, but Pink Floyd just has some amazing fucking tones and songs. That's, when they were at that Pompeii setting, in those kind of like in that mountain setting, I believe, or like at that location. When they played like Echoes, I was just like, fuck, man, that's incredible. Like the way they play that and the way it's structured and the tone, David Gilmour's voice is just it's fucking amazing. Like I can't deny that, it's one of my all-time favorite songs. I don't necessarily think that Pink Floyd all the way through their records is great, but they have some individual songs like Comfortably Numb, what else? Shine on You Crazy Diamond, Echoes, like I said, Time, Us and Them. Like they have a handful of songs that are just amazing, just untouchable, And I don't think Rush really has that. Like, also, Geddy Lee is nowhere near David Gilmour's range or like the singer of Yes. Like those guys can sing their ass off. Like I love the vocals in those bands, and Geddy Lee just doesn't have that. He sounds like kind of a squeaky girl or something. Like I just don't like how this dude sounds. I did give it like 4 stars. I do think this album is good, but like if you have all these prog bands like King Crimson, yes, Pink Floyd, who else? Marillion. I think that Marillion is decent. You have all these great prog bands, and then you decide to listen to Rush. I did kind of grow up with Rush, so I don't hate this. It's good, I like Rush, but I just don't think they're in the conversation of like greatest band ever. I also think that 2112 is like really cheesy, like the concept of that song, and then the rest of the album is just mid, in my opinion. The structure of 2112 is pretty good, but just the overall theme and the lyrics of it, just it's cringe, in my opinion. I just think it's cringe. What else did they make? Like the album with the Honeydew song on it, I think always kind of sounded cheesy. One song that I really love by them is called Subdivisions. Subdivision is fucking great. I love that song. But then you have Spirit on the radio, which is like it's white guys doing a reggae rock song or like a reggae rock section. Like this band has some really cringy moments. Like white guy reggae rock is the worst. Like if you play like UB40 or shit like that, it makes my skin crawl. I fucking hate white guys doing reggae. Stay the fuck away from reggae. Just don't touch it, please. Bob Marley is rolling in his grave. But yeah, I just don't really get it. I think that La Villa Strangiato or something. I think that's pretty good, but just all the bands that I just named in prog, like I think are all better. I think that the Mars Volta is also considered, prog. I love the Mars Volta. I also thought that this album was kind of mid, to be honest. Like someone explained to me, they said like it's like a progressive Steely Dan, and I'm like, yeah, but Steely Dan is chill and relaxed music. I love to relax to Steely Dan. I don't need this concentrated bullshit. Just let me vibe, let me groove to the record. That's kind of a mini rant there, but was not aware that gospel was prog. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty good screamo record. I mean, Yes is great. Yeah, the Mars Volta. That's my favorite right there. Even I would even say that Van de Graaff is better. To be honest, Van de Graaff is kind of a dorky avant-garde band, but they're pretty good. I like them. Yeah, I mean, this is like the holy grail right there. Francis the Mute. That's just amazing. The fuck is Violet Pony? Furries made a prog record. That's interesting, but fuck, I didn't expect that. Camel sucks, but who listens to Camel? I also think that Jethro Tull's kind of mid, but Rush gets all the praise, so I'm like, yeah, Rush ain't it for me. I did say Rush, but maybe I say Genesis though. Yeah, actually looking at this list, I mean Rush is like lower here. Yeah, they're almost halfway down the list. I mean that kind of shows the actual quality of them. I would also argue Genesis. Like I'm not a huge Genesis fan, like you can see. I don't think they're shit, but I just think they can kind of sound aimless and annoying to me. So listening to Genesis is not great, especially when you get to the Phil Collins era. Then that's just game over. That's just game set and match right there. But yeah, I mean Rush is still more overrated, but Genesis is not great. So I would say Rush slash Genesis right there. Um, just the overall structure. Peter Gabriel as a singer, I don't think he's great. When he did that duet with Kate Bush, I was kind of like, I can just listen to Kate Bush, right? Why would I listen to this guy? It just sounds like a kind of contemporary adult crap to me. I don't know. Next band, Slayer. Maybe also an obvious pick, but I was just kind of listening to trash since my last video was about the metal genres, and I always kind of deemed trash to be overrated and kind of mid, to be honest. I still kind of agree with that because most trash metal just isn't really innovative. Like the genre died at like the tail end of the 80s slash early 90s. Like 90, 91, it was just like you don't want to play trash because grunge kind of took everything over. I'll get to that as well in a bit. But yeah, I mean Slayer, they're just the most sloppy and the most, um, kind of the most dull sounding trash band in my opinion. Like I still would rather listen to Slayer than I mean what's a good example? Like Heathen or something or Nevermore. Like those bands sound fucking awful, but no one is saying like Nevermore is the greatest band ever. Like if you say that, like get an ear check, Like that's some really bad music in my opinion. Heathen is just mediocre. Creator, I think it's kind of mid to be honest. Like trash metal just doesn't really move me. So if we look at like the trash list, the influences of Slayer were like death metal, which is cool. I do like trash death. Like trash death sound kind of cool because it's basically just up tempo death metal. But I mean, Slayer's also not really good at that. They still sound sloppy and shitty in my opinion. So if you want like some actual good trash death, just listen to Sepultura, like any of their album or like their early shit, Arise and Beneath the Remains. I always thought they sounded tighter. I think that Max Cavalera sung better. He sounds heavier and grittier. So if you listen to like Slayer, I just don't really understand because Sepultura sounds heavier. Metallica innovated more, Megadeth, they're more technical, Rust in Peace, you could just loop that shit forever and it just doesn't get boring because of all the guitar solos and just all the catchy hooks that they play. So like the Metallica Megadeth camp just has so much more to offer, Even if you go to like some more modern stuff, you have like or Corner, I think is also pretty good. Vector, more technical shit. So there is so much thrash metal that you can listen to, and to actually prefer Slayer over everything else is just kind of you're just playing the most, or you're just choosing the most sloppy and shitty band out of them. I still would listen to Slayer though. I still think they're catchy. I still think they're captivating to listen to, and because all these songs are so short as shit, you can just plow through this album pretty easy. But that's my problem with Slayer. They just don't have any music composition in most of their songs. I would say it's just like play a riff really fast and that's it. That's the music. The only songs where you have some slight compositions are Angel of Death, Raining Blood, and I would argue Postmortem. Like the songs that are bolded here. Like those are the only three songs that have kind of like a music structure. And the rest of this album is just like really short, sloppy, shitty songs. And that's what Slayer is known for, you know? I don't think that all their songs are like this because I did say that Show No Mercy is an underrated album. I do think that that album is good. Has more of a composition to them, but Slayer is known for these fast, sloppy, shitty songs, and that most people would divine them by that album, Raining Blood, and I just don't think it's worth to be in the conversation because it sounds worse than Master of Puppets. It's nearly not as sketchy or technical as Rust in Peace, and it doesn't have the instrumentation of Ride the Lightning. So they're just nothing about it is better than the Megadeth and Metallica albums. Like they just sound better objectively. Battery is a fucking heavier band than Slayer. That's easy. That's not even a question. And Sepultura does the trash death shit better. So what does Slayer better than these bands? Nothing. They just sound shittier, but they're arguably the most popular band besides Metallica and maybe Megadeth. But those bands are better. Those bands sound better. They're tighter. So why wouldn't you just listen to them? I don't get it, you know. If I really get bored of like Master of Puppets or Rust in Peace, then I can go to Slayer or like Sodom, Creator. You know, I can just kind of mix the shit up. Corner, Vector, you know, all good shit. If I really if I really need some more rotation, then of course Slayer comes on because they're a staple. But they just sound the shittiest. I just don't understand that people call them the greatest thrash metal band because nothing about it sounds the best. Everything sounds sloppy, compressed, and shitty. That's what I think. That's just my opinion, I guess. The next band, also, speaking about sloppy, noisy shit, Nirvana. I never thought that grunge was great. I always thought it was kind of like a phase because, you have thrash metal and then grunge, this or well, the album before that, Nevermind, killed off the entire genre or killed off like most like trendy metal shit like thrash and glam. Those genres just don't really exist anymore, or they don't make the head waves. Maybe thrash metal still a bit, but like glam metal, no way after this. No way after Nevermind. And usually when I listen to Nirvana, most of the stuff just sounds pretty mediocre, pretty, mid tempo, just kind of basic. Nothing about it sounds that unique. There's literally a song on here called Dumb, where Kurt just sings, I think I'm dumb or some shit like that for 2.5 minutes long. The song doesn't go anywhere. It's just like this slight acoustic electric sort of guitar where he just repeats and repeats and repeats the title. I'm just kind of like, this is actually retarded. Like you should have just called it retarded because that's how it sounds. I just don't like that. Might be offensive to people, apologies for that, but that's just how fucking dumb I think that this band sounds. And they have some like cool moody songs that I do also enjoy, like Come As You Are. I think that was always one of their better songs. But then I hear stuff like Smells Like Teen Spirit, and it's just like it's just some of the most mediocre and most overglazed like grunge music out there. I'm like, if you want more of an anthems band, then I would argue that, well, would I say Pearl Jam? I mean, Pearl Jam kind of sounds worse than Nirvana, but Nirvana got all the praise, so that's why they're on this list. I also think that Pearl Jam is like massively overrated, but Nirvana is more like the band that people held as great. Like everyone says Nirvana is great, and I'm just like, Kurt can't really sing. He is not a great musician. He doesn't write great. Like his song, like I just said, dumb. It's not great. There is a song, the fourth song. I'm not sure if you can see that. I'm not gonna scroll down there, but I'm not gonna name that song because it's offensive and gross. And that's this band. They're just kind of like shock rock, offensive, gross sounding, and I'm just like, why would you listen to this? It's just so, I don't know. It's just mid. It's just 2.5 minutes of mid. I don't really get it. And if you love Nirvana and you're like, yeah, they're a great band that inspires so many musicians. You have that. By the way, I got this explanation straight up from your favorite band sucks. So I'm just gonna completely rip them off here. Just saying. But they are one of my influences. So, but I got this from them, and it's absolutely true. Like, if a genre is great and it inspires more musicians to pick up a guitar or an instrument, then usually that would mean that the music afterwards should be an improvement of the original, or should at least be on the same quality, because that's what they're pumping out, right? And then you listen to the wave that came after Nirvana, or let's say, like, you have like the punk rock movement, and punk is in itself pretty consistent, tight, and great. So if you do listen to punk, then you already have a great basis of music. And then after that, of course, then the influences, or like the inspired bands, come after that. And you got a genre that's called post-punk. And you listen to it, you have bands like, I think, The Cure on there. I listen to Have a Nice Life, The Chameleons. All these bands that are inspired by punk music, but add their own flair and their own influences into the mix to make it their own sound. Which that's why it's called post-punk, because it's after the initial punk movement. And it's great. All those fucking bands are great. I love all of those bands. You also have like Joy Division, which I think is probably the most overrated band, but even that is more interesting than this, I would say. That's all like pretty solid post-punk right there, except for maybe Joy Division, but still iconic, I would say. But then you have the influences of Nirvana, or like the inspirations of Nirvana, and you get these bands like Bush, Puddle of Mud, Nickelback. Who else? What the fuck even is post grunge? The Foo Fighters, I guess, but that's like directly a member of Nirvana, who also has some pretty bad allegations on him right now. So I'm not gonna talk about it that much. I can't really find it right now, but the bands that I just named, 3 Days Grace, I think, is also post grunge. Like, does that sound great to you? I'm like, this is what Nirvana inspired. Puddle of fucking mud. That's Nirvana did that. They did. I already skipped to the next one, but Nirvana did that. I'm like, yeah, that's their inspiration. So not that great, right? That's just what I think, at least. Then we get the next band, like I showed already, King Diamond. And I'm not saying that King Diamond is bad. I'm not saying that he's like the worst metal band or something. Like, the concept of King Diamond is great. The things that he does with his voice is pretty incredible. Like, his singing like King Diamond is pretty huge. But it's just what he does with it, with his voice and the instrumentals, that I'm just like, this is so boring. Like, I listened to King Diamond. I listened to him for a while because, I just kind of saw him as like a metal icon. So I was like, I have to like him, right? Like, I listened to Ozzy and Dio, and I was like, these are like iconic superstars, and I like their stuff. I like Ozzy and Dio. I'm not saying that it's like the greatest music ever, but it is an enjoyable anthemic time. But usually when I come to King Diamond, I'm not captivated by the concept. I'm not captivated by the musicianship. and I'm not captivated by his constant screeching. He did make that work, but it sounds so aimless and meandering on any King Diamond album. Usually, when I listen to this kind of music, I would usually go to the Merciful Fate albums because I just think that those albums sounded perfect for King Diamond. Like he has a slight tinge of that high voice, that high register that he has. But the musicianship was also great because they had more of like a jazz background to it. And because of that, the music sounded more inspired and, actually fun to listen to. That's kind of why it captivated me. And with King Diamond, it's just not there. The passion or like the intrigue that Merciful Fate had is it's just not there. So I just don't really care for it. And for heavy metal bands, I would always just listen to like Rainbow, Black Sabbath. What else? Merciful Fate, the original King Diamond band. Like the first two albums are pretty great. What else? I would even argue Avenged Sevenfold. I also think that band is quite fun. It does captivate me. Um, yeah, I would even prefer that band. And probably my favorite current heavy metal album, just like straight up vanilla heavy metal, is probably Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche. And that's kind of segues perfect into this because them and like Abigail are like concept album as well. But I never really cared for their concepts. Also, a similar thing, Scenes from My Memories by, or Metropolis by Dream Theater. That's also like a concept. I think that album is way better, of course, but um, they also had a concept, but I never cared for the concept. Like Abigail, Them, Metropolis. I just don't care for these concept albums. I'm like, the music is decent, but I just don't care for the conceptual nature of them. But then you have this album called Operation Mindcrime. You have Jeff Tate, who has like a pretty high register as well. But he's like also kind of a crooner. So it's kind of like a James LeBrie, King Diamond Lovechild, I would say, before Dream Theater even really made it big. Which is kind of perfect though, because Them and Operation Mindcrime were both 88, I believe. So that's kind of that's like the exact perfect segue right there. But yeah, Jeff Tate is great. I think he's a great singer. The musicianship in Queensryche, it's not like mind blowing or something, but it does the job. It has a good punch to it. The songs are catchy, captivating. I'm like, you have this character called Marie or something, who's like a whore that pretends to be like a nun, and she like gets with this dude who is like an actual serial killer, but he tries to make it work with this nun. And just this constant narrator that just says, "Kill Mary, kill that bitch, kill her in cold blood." And I'm just like it's pretty cheesy B movie shit, but I kind of get the concept, and you hear the dread and the terror between the segues, and I'm like, this is a really cool fucking album. Like the tone of it, the atmosphere. You have the song called "Sweet Sister Mary," which is just like a 10-minute like epic balls to the wall heavy metal song, with like the Marie character actually like singing her ass off. I'm like, this is such a fucking good album. It's so fucking amazing. The musicianship is great. The singing is great. And the concept, I kind of understand it. I usually like I'm that person that I just don't fucking care about lyrics. And Operation Mindcrime makes me care for the lyrics. I'm like, this is actually kind of interesting, and that's how you know that the songwriting is good. If you actually give a shit about the concept, which most bands can never do that with me, but Operation Mindcrime somehow can. That's why I think I would miles prefer it, or I know I miles prefer it over this or Abigail. I don't know. I just kind of clicked on it because it's the prettiest album cover, so I like it. But Operation Mindcrime all the way. Like if you know that exists, why would you listen to this? or Merciful Fate, Don't Break the Oath. You know, just listen to that. Great album, you know. I love that album. Why would you listen to this? To diversify, I guess, just listen to Queensryche. Just listen to Merciful Fate. Just those bands. I think they just pack a way bigger punch in heavy metal than King Diamond, I think. In my opinion, you know. Also, you know, for singing Jeff Tate and Ronnie James Dio, like, if you slack on Ronnie James Dio, like, you just should shut up. Like, Dio is the fucking goat. Like, Stargazer, are you kidding me? Like, Jesus. Like, just listen to that. Come on, man. Another band that I was kind of looking through that I just don't really understand is Bull Thrower. And again, I don't think that this is a bad band, but it's kind of a similar reason to King Diamond. Like, all the music sounds kind of the same, and you know, it's similar. It's kind of treading old grounds. It's not really like immersive or captivating me. It's just the same continuous sound over and over again, and I'm just like, this is not interesting. And the only band or the only album that kind of, you know, moved me was In Battle There's No Law, because it's more of like a gritty grindcore like black metal record, because, you know, for those reasons it has a more interesting sound. But after they dropped that, they just got in full on like game theory mode, like with all these video game-esque album covers, and you just get like the most cheesy shit ever. Like, look at this shit. Their logo and just their album covers, it's all video game covered. It's all video game based, like especially this one. I'm just like, this is all the same, like generic death metal. So why would you listen to this? I think it's all pretty straightforward death metal. Like, if you go to death metal, why wouldn't you just listen to Cryptopsy? Why wouldn't you just listen to Death? You know, that's more innovative. If you want some groove in your death metal, Gojira. If you want like some more demonic sounds, Immolation or Morbid Angel. I think Morbid Angel is pretty great. Dismember, way heavier band, you know. Morbid Angel, like I said, great. If you want some tech death, Suffocation, you know. My current favorite death metal band is called Dragged into Sunlight. I think, yeah, here. I can't really show this cover because there's like an actual demonic mother that's like birding a child on an album cover. I'm like, I can't show that shit, but it's pretty great. The music, that is. But yeah, I think that all those albums are better. And usually when I hear Bolter, I'm just like, this is the most banal, boring, and generic option you have, you know? So I never understood why people listen to Bolter and call it the best death metal band, because it's the most basic one. Like, I see Gorguts here, and if you've seen like my channel's videos, you just know that I fucking hate this band. I just don't really like dissonant kind of music. I tried with Portal and Deathspell Omega. I thought it was kind of alright, but most of it just sounds aimless, directionless, meandering, just kind of like pointless. It doesn't really go anywhere because it's dissonant. That's the point. But even Gorguts is more interesting, you know? I would call it interesting bad music, and I think that's still better than just mediocre bland music like Bull Thrower. That's just my opinion, I guess, you know? I also really love this band called Intestine Balsam. I think they have another album on here. The Handface one is the most popular or the most acclaimed one. They have like two other albums that I prefer. But the Handface one is Banquet in the Darkness, which is like the most it's the most acclaimed one on there, I guess, but it's my personal least favorite. Their last one is my favorite, and the first one is my second favorite. So that's kind of funny, but I mean that's like a gritty, like melodic death metal band. So I love that band. But Bolt Thrower, I just don't care. They're just a really bland and boring band in my opinion. The next band's probably the most controversial pick because if you go on this website, like everyone is a Radiohead glazer, everyone loves this band, and I'm just like, the, I think I watched Finn McKenzie describe this band as like the Olive Garden of music, which I 100% agree with because if you go to like art rock, you have like the Mars Volta again and the Velvet Underground, which just do way more with their sound than Radiohead does. Like this is some pretty minimal and some tribal, just like some ambient shit. And I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but you know that Tangerine Dream exists, right? You know that Brian Eno exists, right? Like, arguably the inventor of fucking ambient music. You have that music and it just sounds better. I'm like, why would you listen to this? Like, Tom York is not a great singer. Um, you know, I think he's way too whiny and annoying to really listen to. So I can't really relax to Kid A because Tom York stresses me out. Like that voice, it's not soothing. It's kind of creepy. The vibe of Kid A is pretty cool, but if you listen to these songs, I'm just kind of like, yeah, but I have a bit of IDM here, which is also alright. But Avex Twin exists. He has Selected Ambient Works, which is a better ambient, like a better techno record. And if you want some more upbeat in your face music, you have Drugs. I'm like, Drugs exist. It's fucking great. It's like great drill and bass music. I'm like, why wouldn't you just listen to that if you want some more upbeat music? But I know that Radiohead fans ain't like into fucking upbeat music because Radiohead is like the most depressing, dwelling band ever. So I'm like, this is pretty depressing. And usually when I go to IDM, Avex Twin, like I said, way better. Boards of Canada, they have better ambience in their music, I think. Sweet Trip is just a million times more fun than Radiohead. Altecker, like I said. The Tusk, which is kind of like a project of Avex Twin, which is also sounds more fun. What else do you have? This album is fucking amazing. Like some really breakcore, electronic experimental music with modern classical tinges. So I think this is kind of like the Kid A that Radio was striving for, but they just don't know what to do with the composition. So Phoenician snares is the answer to that, which I think sounds a million times better in my opinion. Like if you are aware of Venetian snares, why would you ever listen to Radiohead? I just don't understand. I just don't get it. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I currently don't really see it. Yeah, I guess in techno as well, you have Avex Twin, and you also have this album, Insights, which is way more atmospheric. If you want to go for like an ambient, like kind of trancey album, this album has better beat switch ups. It has better production. It just completely focuses on the instrumentals, which I love in electronic music. So, whenever Tom York's whiny voice comes over that, it just ruins the moment for me. And you have songs on there, the girl with the sun in her head, which is just like this 10-minute psychedelic trip of techno. It's just like this acid techno hit that just hits you just constantly. I gave it 5 stars because it's just a fucking amazing album. It's like one of the best albums I've ever heard in my life. You have the box. Yeah, that's great. The box sequels. Doer Butter or something. Also thought it was kind of incredible. And the outro of Out There Somewhere is just fucking chef's kiss. If you listen to these 2 sequel songs, and I think this is how they go out, it's just fucking incredible. On Spotify, I think that Adnance is the closer, which is kind of odd, I think. I'm just kind of looking through my playlist right now because I do want to fact check it. I do want to fact check it. Okay, no. I have a bonus song on there, which is called The Saint, which is fine. You know, it's a fine song, but it's kind of ruins the outro of Out There Somewhere. So I wasn't aware that the Saint wasn't an official song and it was kind of like a bonus track. But yeah, that does kind of ruin it. But you know, if you drop like the bonus shit off there and you go out there somewhere, fucking mind blow. I'm like, wow, this is fucking good electronic music. I'm like, wow, fuck Radiohead. Just listen to Inside. It's a million times better in my opinion. If you like that like kind of whiny emotional voice, I'm like, Bjork exists, you know. I don't think she's whiny, but she has more emotion and range in her voice. So I'm like, she's kind of like the pop version of Radiohead anyway. So just listen to her, you know. I'm like, that's better. What does Radiohead better? Like this album exists. Just listen to Insights. It's wow. I'm still like mind blown that that music like this exists. Like you might hear this and you're like, it's not that good, right? If you get into the trance and the immersion of Insights, you'll never want anything else. I'm like, wow, I'm fucking hooked on this record. Mainly because of the Wonky Angle. Shout out to him. It's like his favorite record, so yeah. That's fucking amazing. Radiohead, I don't understand, but this album, wow. Just wow, amazing. Fuck Kid A, just listen to this. Sigur Rós, also a band that I was kind of discussing lately because we were kind of talking about post-rock music. And if I say we, I mean like sometimes I'm still on Discord, you know, still sometimes I'm in my Discord server, the Void, which is called. And sometimes I brought up post rock, and that's, you know, you have some really great picks. You know, you have some pretty phenomenal names in there. And Sigur Rós was always kind of that band where I was kind of like, it's not awful, but it always sounded a bit, I don't know, a bit whiny or something. Like the Tom York thing again. I'm just kind of like, it's a whiny, it's tedious to go through. The instrumentation is pretty. I do like the instrumentation, but I'm kind of like, if I want this like this slow tempo, like this really barren kind of post rock sound, just listen to Godspeed You Black Emperor. I'm like, that is the main band. So why wouldn't you just listen to that? And people say, "Oh, I love the emotion. Oh, I love, you know, the fucking the made up language that they do." I'm just kind of like, that's not good though. I'm like, you can't even understand it. It's a made up language. You have to learn their bullshit language to understand the music. And I'm like, no, fuck them. That's tedious. That's just really annoying. And they have like a more famous album than this, like the Eagers Beerters or some shit. I just Beerters or some. I don't speak fucking Icelandic. I don't fucking know. Ask Björk. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, this is not great post rock music. I think this dude is whiny. I think that the music is just kind of slop. So usually when I kind of listen to like post rock, I would definitely prefer Explosion in the Sky. I mean, I'm not a huge Godspeed fan, but it's better. You know, it's just a hit of post rock. You know, that's just what you get. Spiderland is fucking great. Talk is more dense. Swans is more interesting, I would say. This is my favorite Swans album, or the one with the bunny on it. I'm not sure. Flood is a masterpiece, you know. And this album is pretty interesting. Live to Experience, not the greatest album cover, but it is a good hit. Black Country I also think is really overrated, but you know, Sigur Rós has been around since '99, so they have had more of a chance to be overrated. This album's only out for like 2 years. What else do we got? I feel like I'm forgetting one band. I think Toe is also pretty good. Kind of like a more underrated Japanese kind of post-rock band, which I would recommend. Mount Zion is pretty decent. Um, there's this one band that I really love. You have like God is an Astronaut, but it's the other band. You know, if you have watched like the wide vids of his like favorite albums, I think it was called Ingi Holda or something. Like that album is fucking great. I think it was this Indie Holda. There you go. It's like literally an indie record. You have a different cover of this. This is my favorite one. This cover is kind of eh. But this is like a hit of like ambient post rock, which is just instrumental. It's just an instrumental take. And like, look at these fucking album lengths. I actually have like a bonus song as well, which makes this over an hour long. Which is kind of weird that they're not, you know, it's not on there. It's not on the official release. But yeah, a song for Starlit Beaches, I think, is the bonus song. Yeah, a song for Starlit Beaches, which is kind of like arguably my favorite song on the record. So there's like 1/4 of an album missing, or 1/4 of a song. 1/4 of the whole album is missing on that record. But yeah, I mean, these fucking songs are great. Like, they're just a big hit of like post rock. It's like really dense, lush, long, orchestrated rock music, or like post rock music. It's like ambient, you know. It's a bit indie, like their name suggests, Indie Holda. I'm kind of surprised that they're calling it an EP because it's like 60 minutes long. It's kind of like the Dream Theater thing. Like, not a lot of songs, but the songs that are on there are just huge as shit. Yeah, it's also considered an EP, I guess. Do they not have a studio album? Yeah, they have one, but it was not great. So yeah, it was just kind of like an EP that turned into a vinyl LP or like a record over time. But yeah, I mean, this album just sounds fucking incredible to me. Like the density and just the overall aesthetic of it, just the lush sounds is it's just incredible. I'm like, this actually goes somewhere. I'm like, fuck yeah. And I just don't hear that with the other one with Sigur Rós, you know. I already forgot them. That's just how little impact it has on me. I just don't really get it personally. I would rather listen to Enjoy Eternal Bliss. It really is an eternal album for me. Just like an all-time favorite for sure. And then we get the last one. I should probably round this out. It's almost like an hour long. Donuts, which, you know, Jay Dilla is not a band, so I might have to call this video 10 or so overrated artists, or I could call it bands. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but Jay Dilla, like, I just don't really understand. Like, it's kind of the Slayer thing. Like, the songs are too short. Like, they're even shorter than Rain in Blood, but they're like musical loops. They're like these hip hop beats that they give you kind of a sample of it, and the only one that is kind of completed is called working on it. You know, I'm saying it like this because that's also how he samples it. Working on it. And I'm just like, it's not, that doesn't sound good. The beats on there are really great though. I really love the beats on this record. Like the record sounds great. But this sounds more like an unfinished demo tape than an actual album. And that's my main problem with Jay Dilla. Most of his music sounds unfinished and demo-esque. I'm like, I don't think it's bad, you know, it's fine for what it is. But if you go to instrumental hip hop, then it's the second highest rated instrumental hip hop album. I'm like, that's nowhere near the best album. I'm like, yeah, Introducing is the obvious, like, greatest album. Like, this album is fucking amazing. Like, Building's Team with a Grain of Salt, Chef's Kiss, Changeling, amazing. Just the way that that song sounds, is the bass tones on there. I'm creaming my pants. Like, oh my god, amazing. And look at these song lengths: 6 minutes, 4 minutes, almost 8 minutes. I'm like, this is like progressive hip hop heaven for me. And I never thought I would say prog and hip hop in the same sentence, but this is the closest thing to like a prog hip hop album that you can get. Like that's an insane concept, you know. Besides Kendrick Lamar and maybe Kanye, and this is like a prog hip hop record, which is insane. You know, that's an insane concept. Like imagine this, like fucking, like imagine the Roots playing a Yes song. That's how this sounds to me. I'm not sure if anyone has ever made that comparison, but yeah, that sounds fucking right. Long stem is just. I was not aware that it was 9 minutes long, but it feels like 3 or 4 minutes long. Like this song is incredible. Like long stem, one of the greatest musical compositions ever, I would say. Just an incredible song. And that was only the first half of the record. I'm not even done. Like that's how good it is. Like yeah, that's the obvious great instrumental record. Jay Dilla, like it's nowhere near on that level. And if you want like some more lush or like groovy instrumental hip hop, just listen to Nujabes. Like Nujabes sounds chiller, he sounds doper, his beats are better. I also gave this 3 star. I maybe have to re-listen to it again, but you know, instrumental hip hop, it sounds good. It sounds fucking good. Yeah, I mean, even a reviewer that I watched like gives it like a near perfect rating. So I'm like, yeah, if that person gives it that high rating, it's really fucking good. That's like a moderator of like Raging Music, I believe. I'll follow them. But yeah, I mean, the main things that I love in Nujabes are like the Samurai Champloo music records, which I wish they would add to fucking Spotify. Like these albums are fucking great. Like everyone knows the song Aquarian Dance. Like that's such a good song. Like I just love the sound of this record. It's like really warm, jazzy. It's like really just relaxing to listen to. I'm like, yeah, it's just really chill. And I can't really chill to this because the songs don't last. They last too short to really leave an impression on you. So I'm like, yeah, Nujabes is chill. DJ Shadow is just. This album is untouchable. Like, you don't understand how good it is. Like, I can't even explain why it makes it great. You know why it's so great. Just listen to it. It's a must listen. And then you have Third Side of Day, which is more interesting, more experimental. The songs actually last and they sound tighter. This is probably like the most interesting instrumental hip hop album. I can't really show the cover because uh, they're like having anal sex on the album cover. I'm like, wow. Yeah, they don't display it on Spotify, by the way. They have like a really clean, like this version. I actually kind of prefer the color scheme of this one, but I mean, those images are pretty fucking vivid for sure. Pretty fucking wild. But yeah, even here they're split up into sides. On Spotify you get like the actual song titles, but yeah, this is a pretty dense and out there album. It's like 2 hours of just random snippets and beats of Lil Ugly Man, but it's really interesting and just out there. I just think it's like one of the most dense and interesting instrumental hip hop albums out there. So, like, I still really love it. Like, I might even say it's a personal favorite, but Introducing is like the holy bible of the genre. It's kind of like the berserk of its genre, you know, as far as manga goes. Like, it's the greatest thing ever musically, so you just highly respect it. I still love it, you know, love it as well. So I'm like, yeah, that's the obvious great one. I think my camera is zooming out because of my hand movement. Who knows? But that's my room, by the way. But yeah, that's my list of 10 or so overrated bands. You know, if you can call Jay Dilla a band, I don't know, but that's my opinion. I almost made it 1 hour long, so I'm just gonna end it there. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe if you want. Suggest another video topic if you want. I'm gonna rest my lungs now, and I'll see you in the next video when I get inspired again. See you around.